The Thomas Code, Chapter 7. Powers of 10. 2.4. Jesus said, I shall choose you 1 out of 1,000, and 2 out of 10,000, and they shall stand as a single one. Thomas 23. 1 out of 1,000. One of the clues that a saying points to the Thomas Code is the presence of numbers. There are 2 more sayings that involve numbers, and we will see that the 2 are linked. The first is 2.4, which not only features numbers, but which also has the chosen being called the single one. We would expect the saying to relate to the numerical mysticism of the Thomas Code. But what does the strange formula 1 out of 1,000 and 2 out of 10,000 mean? The Thomas Code is a prime factorization, so we will start by looking at the prime factorization of 1 out of 1,000 and 2 out of 10,000. 1 out of 1,000. The prime factorization of 1,000 is 1,000 equals 2 cubed multiplied by 5 cubed, which equals 2 multiplied by 5 cubed. This combines the 3 significant numbers, 2, 3, and 5. Both 2 and 5 are raised to the power of 3, symbolizing the Father. This is the first hint that we again have a countdown. 2 out of 10,000. The prime factorization of 10,000 is 10,000 equals 2 to the power of 4, multiplied by 5 to the power of 4, which equals 2 multiplied by 5 to the power of 4. We now have the power of 4, which is not a prime number. However, the formula is actually 2 out of 10,000. What does it mean to take 2 out of 10,000? We might divide by 2, which would give 1 out of 5,000. But if so, why does the formula not say 1 out of 5,000? Instead, we must work with the prime factorization. The power of 4 can be divided into 2 2's, enabling us to split the factorization into 2. 2 times 5 to the power of 4 equals 2 times 5 squared, multiplied by 2 times 5 squared. We now have 2 expressions, each involving a power of 2. So taking 2 out of 10,000 gives us 1/2 of the factorization. 2 times 5 squared. So this time, the factor, 2 times 5, is raised to the power of 2, the number of the Son. We should note other clues pointing to the number of the Son. We have twin copies of the expression, just as we have twin 2's in the Thomas Code, and 2 is included explicitly in the formula 2 out of 10,000. The countdown. The saying then gives a countdown. 3. 2 times 5 cubed, indicating the Father. 2. 2 times 5 squared, repeated twice, indicating the twin 2's, which is the symbol of the Son. 1. The single one being the chosen disciples. We again have the Trinity. 1 out of 1,000 and 2 out of 10,000. We can do one last operation with the factors. The saying includes the word and, suggesting that we might combine the 1 out of 1,000 and 2 out of 10,000. Instead of summing the 2 numbers, we should combine their prime factorizations. This gives 1 out of 1,000, 2 times 5, cubed, and 2 out of 10,000. 2 times 5, squared, all in brackets, which equals 2 times 5 cubed, multiplied by 2 times 5 squared, which also equals 2 times 5 to the power of 5. So we now have a power of 5, signifying the 5 factors of the Thomas Code. 10. There is one puzzle left in saying 2.4, and that is why it should concern factors of 2 times 5. We would normally write this, of course, as 10. 10 equals 2 times 5. Factors of 10 were important for the Jews and Romans, just as they are for us, but it is not a prime. The numerical symbolism revolves around prime numbers, so why should powers of 10 feature in saying 2.4? The answer is that 10 stands in substitution for a prime number. We have seen how the three primes, 2, 3, and 5, involved in the Thomas Code are intimately related. In particular, 2 and 5 have a unique property. The numbers 2 and 5 are the only pair of prime numbers whose difference, 5 minus 2, equals the prime number 3. Because 3 stands for the Father, it would have had supreme importance in the mysticism of the Thomas Code. Whoever developed the mathematical symbolism has noticed that 2 and 5 uniquely indicate 3 through this property of their difference. So the combination of 2 and 5, multiplying out to 10, is taken as symbolizing 3. If this is correct, then 1 out of 1,000 equals 2 times 5. Cubed indicates 3 threes, meaning 3 to the power of 3. We have already seen how 2 out of 10,000 symbolizes 2 twos, and we end with the single 1. This property of 2 times 5 substituting for 3 will prove to be very significant for the parable of the loaves and fishes. But first, we will look at another saying that involves 10, 60, and 120. The final saying involving numbers is the parable of the sower. The culmination of this saying features a super yield from the seed that falls onto the good ground, 60 per measure and 120 per measure, from 1.8, Thomas 9. The same parable is found in the Synoptics. The Matthew and Luke versions are derivative from Mark, which has 30-fold and 60-fold and 100-fold. The rest of the parable is very similar, so why should Thomas have different numbers? This parable is undoubtedly a pre-existing saying dating from before the Gospel of Thomas was compiled in its final form. This suggests that the numbers have been changed in the Thomas version to fit in with the numerical mysticism of the Thomas Code. We can, in fact, see some clear links with the saying we have just considered, 2.4. 1. One concerns the chosen, the other the seed that gives good fruit. But this fruit that comes from the sowing of the gospel is also the chosen. 2. They both compare the numbers of the chosen in parallel format, X and Y. 1 out of 1,000 and 2 out of 10,000, 60 per measure, and 120 per measure. 3. In one case, the numbers involve powers of 10, 10 cubed and 10, and in the other, the numbers are products of 10. 60 equals 6, multiplied by 10. 120 equals 12, multiplied by 10. If we complete the sum, adding 60 per measure and 120 per measure, then we get 180 per measure. 180 equals 18 times 10. The parallelism with 2.4 suggests that in this case, we should be looking at the numbers that multiply 10, just as in 2.4. It was the powers of 10 that were significant. We have already found 12 in saying 1.18, where it is the value of the stones that minister, the central triplet in the Thomas Code. In fact, we can get to each one of these numbers by looking at all the subsequences involving 2 or 3 factors in the Thomas Code. 3 times 2 or 2 times 3 equals 6. 2 times 3 times 2 equals 12. 3 times 2 times 3 equals 18. We can see the numbers attached to the Thomas version of the sower as presenting a mathematical theorem. The Thomas Code is a play on the 3 prime numbers 2, 3, and 5. If we take the smallest prime, 2, and add it to the second smallest prime, 3, we get the next prime, 5. This is unique to these 3 prime numbers. In fact, there are no other 2 consecutive primes that will sum to give a third prime. Whoever put the numbers in the Thomas version of the parable would seem to have discovered a parallel property in the Thomas Code, as is illustrated in the table below. This equivalence applies only to the Thomas Code ordering. It would have been seen as confirmation that the Thomas Code had been placed into the structure of mathematics by God. The use of subsequences, as found in 1.8, will be important to the miracle of the loaves and fishes, to which we will now turn.